and share my screen. So this is going to be a kind of walkthrough. We've got 25 minutes now. So we'll see how we do in that time. Or could have questions at the end if there's extra time. As mentioned, I've dropped the slides in the chat. The slides mostly, it's very short set of slides. The slides are mostly containing useful links for you all. So you could refer back to them. Here's what I hope to share with you today. Mostly focused on how to use Maxar's new Imagery Explorer, Archive Explorer. But also hoping to quickly show you how to explore the metadata, and particularly the capture dates of other imagery sources. It turns out they are actually often Maxar imagery anyway, and how to do some cross-checking to find out imagery capture dates, even if they aren't contained in metadata. Just a quick reminder of why it's important to have up-to-date imagery. So this is a Ifo refugee camp in Kenya. This is just 2 years apart, 2007 to 2009. You can see 2007, this refugee camp was not half as extensive as it was just 2 years later in 2009. So this is why it's crucially important to have up-to-date imagery often when we are mapping in disaster or development contexts. The first walkthrough I'm going to do for all of you is of Maxar's new MGP Express platform. Stands for Maxar Geospatial Platform Express. I'm by no means an expert on this platform. I've only been playing around with it for a couple months now. Yeah, welcome anyone jumping in with any suggestions of how else to use it. But I'm just going to give you a quick idea of how it works. I'm firstly going to share a link to the actual platform in the chat. The good thing about this platform is that you can do a lot. You can actually do a lot without logging in or creating an account. So this is what the platform looks like. The kind of main purpose of this platform is to explore the Maxar imagery archive. So you can have a look at all the imagery that's been captured by Maxar since, I think, 1999. And you can explore it for a very particular area. Okay, so I'm just going to take an example. Recently, we've been mapping Maiduguri in Nigeria for a flood response. So what you can do here is you can search for a location. You can see the base map is OpenStreetMap, which is nice. And let's just search for Maiduguri, Nigeria. We can click there. It's going to jump to there. Now let's jump to that city. It's not going to immediately present you with available imagery there. Okay. You do need to actually define an area that you're interested in. And you will need to do that by selecting Add Area up here. Okay. Once you've done that, you've got a variety of options here to define your area of interest. If you want to keep it simple, you can just draw a rectangle. So you can select Draw Rectangle, click once to start drawing, and click again to finish that rectangle. If you want to be a bit more complex, you could draw a polygon, so you could draw a more complex shape. Or if you have a shape from another source, maybe a administrative area or a flood extent from another source, you can actually import that. So you can upload a boundary file. Okay. So let's just use a rectangle here. So you do need to actually draw your area of interest. I'm going to select Save. When you're happy with it, you can select Save. As soon as you do that, it's going to start searching through the entire catalog, the entire archive. Now, it's not going to show you Maxar imagery in the resolution that we're used to looking at it. It's showing you blurry. It's basically showing you a kind of preview of what's available. it's showing us the available scenes or images in this list here, okay, for that intersect the polygon that you've created here. It's only showing the ones that are ticked here, okay? And when you hover over the scenes, it's showing you the extent of them. So when I hover over these scenes, it's kind of showing with an orange boundary and a grayed out part, the extent of each scene. Now, some of these aren't active, but I can see the extent of, for example, this one by hovering over it. And if I want to make it active, I can click it to make it active. It's then going to show me a preview. Okay, so I can see that scene. Like, this might not be that useful because it's pretty cloudy. It's actually obscured by the other scenes, so I can drag it above them to make it visible, right? You can kind of reorder the way that things are shown here. Okay, this is not that useful because it's a little bit cloudy. There is a cloud value here, percentage, that's kind of auto-generated, so you could use that to decide yourself on what to choose. The really important bit here that we're going to be interested in mostly is the date collected. Okay, 2024-09-24. It's US date style, so that's saying this one here, for example, 2024-12-05. That's for 5th of December. Okay, this is today at 9:23. So this morning UTC. Let's actually take that one as an example. It has a pretty good intersection with the area of interest. Not complete intersection, but it's pretty good intersection with the area of interest. There's 0 clouds. It says there's 0% clouds, but we can actually visually check that. I can't see any clouds. So this is a great scene. This could be one to use. Okay. If you want to find out more information about it, you can click this little 3 dots icon and select View Metadata. So what we've got here is we've got the date capture, we've got the cloud level, we've got the satellite that captured it. We've got the off nadir angle, 28 degrees. That's the angle in degrees of the satellite versus the location of the area on Earth that the photo is taken of. Not that important when we're doing humanitarian mapping, but if that angle is very, very high, it means that you're going to be seeing often like the sides of buildings. And yeah, it might be a little bit harder to map, but sometimes it actually does help if they are tall buildings. Let's view a bit more metadata. So if you view metadata, you're going to get a bunch of other information about it. One of the things that's useful here that's also shown that we didn't see before is the ground sample distance. Now, this could, I think, best way of explaining this in layman's terms is the resolution. And that's in meters. So what that's saying is that the 1 pixel on the ground is about 0.6 meters, about 60 centimeters, which is good enough to map buildings usually. Usually anything above, like, I don't know, 80, 90, a meter, 80 or 90 centimeters or a meter starts to become difficult to map buildings. So that's decent. And you can find out other information. I'm not good at knowing exactly what this means, but there's a bunch of stuff about azimuth and the sun. That's basically about the angle of the sun relative to the photo on the ground. So how much shadow there is. And actually, it's kind of nice to have shadow. A lot of us are experienced mappers of buildings here. Having shadows helps. But having too much shadow can sometimes be annoying. So it's that's interesting, but I honestly don't know that much about that. Image ID. This is what's really useful to share, right? If we're trying to work out which images are going to be useful for us in a response, this is kind of the most specific you can be. Sharing this code, the image ID, is the most specific you can be about the imagery that you want in a response. Okay. So kind of that, in a way, once you've found an image that you really like, that's very relevant for disaster response, That's the thing to note down. Okay. Now we look through all that metadata. There are some nice filters here. Like if you want to exclude stuff quickly, you can use these filters here. So there's like filtering option here. You can quickly filter by date. So for example, if you just wanted from the last couple months, you could just change your start and end dates there to ensure that. If you wanted to eliminate stuff that was, if you weren't actually that bothered about cloud cover, you could increase the cloud cover percentage, so it would include more cloudy scenes. If you wanted to change the nadir or the sun elevation minimums, you could change that as well. And then also here, really nice, you can change the your kind of resolution maximums. So anything less than 70 centimeters, 60 centimeters, and so on. And there is stuff about imagery types. For example, if you wanted to include panchromatic imagery, that's black and white imagery, you could include that as well, for example. And you can actually choose imagery source. So better to kind of look up what these sensors are, what these satellites are on Wikipedia to find out a bit more information about them. These stand for worldview, so worldview 1, worldview 2, worldview 3. Once you look up on Wikipedia, if you type in worldview 1, worldview 2, whatever, you'll find out more information about those satellites. It tells you what the resolution, for example, of those satellites is. Wikipedia is great for that, but also just to say this platform does have a bunch, actually really good help section. So if you go help here and go help, there's really good documentation on a lot of stuff here. And I was actually looking at a lot of this in the lead up to this call, so you can find out like a bunch of other stuff. It goes into a bunch of other detail about what you can do on the platform, and also like a glossary of what a lot of the words mean, which is awesome. Yeah, just to quickly clarify, there is a drop down here where you can choose between core imagery and stereo imagery. Stereo imagery is, as soon as you choose stereo imagery, you'll realize there's hardly any of it, and that's because stereo imagery is basically for very advanced imagery processing. It's for like creating 3D visualizations and digital elevation models. It's not going to be relevant to us, and the coverage is much lower. So you can see there's actually none. There's none here at all with the filtered values. So the one you want is core imagery. You can also just like preview Maxar's base maps. So they're kind of Maxar standard, Maxar advanced layers, but it's not very relevant here either to do that. But the one you want to be selecting here is going to be core imagery. I said so everything I've shown you so far, you can do without logging into this platform. Something you cannot do, though, unless you've logged in and created an account, and it's pretty straightforward to create an account. I'll just show you that quickly. You just go to Express and then select login, but select register, and then you it is going to just ask you for this information. You can add that information and it will automatically register you. One of the main things it's going to give you if you do register is that once you've kind of done a search and drawn a boundary of your area of interest, and you've maybe selected some of the scenes that you're interested in, like you can tick them and move them around, customize this a bit. What you can do is you kind of effectively save this and share it with other people. If you click this link, and you can only do this if you're logged in, if you click this link, what it does is it generates a permalink, this link, a unique link, which you can share with other people. When you share it with other people, they can open that up, and even if they're not, let's go back to private window again. even if they're not logged in, if you share that link, let's test this, it should just jump to that area that you've been looking at. It should keep, there it is, it keeps the AOI and it keeps all the imagery options that you had, the ones that you selected. So what you could do with a link like that is you could say, hey, I've been checking this area out. I've got a couple of the scenes checked, and the ones that I'm most interested in, but I don't really know which ones to look at, which ones to prioritize. Please, others, have a look at this. So it's a great way of kind of sharing what you've been looking at with others. So that permalink option is actually only available if you've logged in, generating a permalink, but anyone can look at the link. They don't need to be logged in if you share the link. Okay. The other thing that you get access to if you log in is that there is actually access directly here to Maxar's Open Data program. So you can go to previous events from previous years and view the data and the scenes and zoom right into it. You can also download the scenes as GeoTIFFs. So yeah, this is yeah, Brian. So let's go back to that scene. Yeah. So if there's missing patches here, if you're thinking about, okay, I want to cover that patch here as well to the right, I can just hover over this. I can see, okay, that was captured a bit earlier in the year in September, but it's got good coverage over here. So let's add that. So now it's kind of creating a patchwork of scenes. So if you wanted to, you could then like copy a couple of those image IDs and be sharing those. Okay, I do want to jump to something because I think particularly for this response in Nigeria floods, I discovered something which is probably obvious to other people. But Esri's world imagery and its metadata seemingly has improved a lot in the last like year or months. So there's two kind of links I'm going to share with you. One of them is a bit older, you might be familiar with. Another one is I didn't know about till recently, which is, so now we're kind of pivoting here to what's already available all the time in OpenStreetMap, the Esri world imagery layer. This is always available for people to digitize OpenStreetMap. I would say at the moment, it's always worth checking, particularly this imagery and its capture dates when you're hearing about a disaster in a particular area and you're thinking about mapping that area on OpenStreetMap. First link I've shared with you is a great little website created by seemingly an enthusiast who's shown the Esri world imagery capture dates with the extent of each scene, and in the center, the capture date. Okay, you need to zoom in. If what I've shared with you, the link probably starts out at world level, you need to start zooming in. It doesn't show until you get to a zoomed in enough level. This is actually the refugee camp I showed you at the start of this short call. We can see here that right now, the Esri world imagery, which is available for digitizing OpenStreetMap, was captured in February 2023. And we can see that because that refugee camp sits right in the middle of that really big scene. And in the middle of that scene, we can see the date capture, 2023-02-10. This is kind of complemented with something I've been aware of for a bit longer, which is a platform I've also shared the link to, which is from ArcGIS. Also a way of exploring their imagery, Esri world imagery. What we're seeing here is Esri world imagery in its full resolution. We're in the Ifa refugee camp again. This is point and click. So this is kind of has its own strength and its own weakness. You can't quickly see the extent of the scene and the date, but if you zoom in and click, It's going to tell you the source that Esri World Imagery is using. Esri doesn't have satellites. It purchases imagery from satellite providers or from aerial imagery providers. So it's saying here, this imagery for Ether refugee camp is from Maxar. So it's Maxar imagery. And it was captured on 10th of February, 2023. And the resolution on the ground of each pixel is 0.6 meters, 60 centimeters. Not bad. Okay, so that's, I would say those two Esri imagery explorers are complementary to each other. Now, Bing metadata. This has been around for a little bit longer as well. I'll share the link. This is another point and click. This is for Bing imagery. We're at the same location, Ether refugee camp. Similar experience. You zoom into the world, you find the area you want to check the date or information about Bing imagery, and you click. This is not great. We don't get the source. The capture date is a range, and usually the range is huge. 2014, between 2014 and 2023, this imagery was captured. Okay, so this is a platform. I haven't seen any better for Bing, honestly. Bing's metadata doesn't seem all that great. The thing that I would recommend that you do, though, is that you just check out Bing imagery and compare it, because what you'll often find is that it's the same as Esri imagery, and therefore it might well be Maxar imagery. So here's Esri World imagery for the refugee camp. When I turn on Bing imagery, I notice that it's identical to Esri World imagery. And we learned that Esri World imagery was actually Maxar imagery. So Bing imagery is actually Maxar imagery. And Bing imagery was captured on 10th of February 2023. How do we know these are identical? Because there are trucks and cars and people in exactly the same position in both these sources. Okay, there's no way that there's a coincidence that that happened and they were in exactly the same place. So these are identical images. Just actually that Esri seems to have been downsampled or something. The imagery is not as sharp as Bing aerial imagery here. So a decision in an instance like this might be to use, for example, Bing imagery. It seems the sharpest, and actually through just cross-checking, we've worked out that it's probably the latest available open imagery as well. Just finally going to talk about the only other source that's always available globally for checking and improving OpenStreetMap is Mapbox. Okay, Mapbox for this area is different to Bing and Esri, so we don't really know what it is. You can see the trucks and cars and everything have moved. We don't really know what it is, and unfortunately also for Mapbox, metadata is not available as far as I'm aware. And checking on the Mapbox information website, share this link. If you scroll down to the bottom of this page, you'll see that it says we are not able to make imagery metadata available for Mapbox. Not the end of the world, because actually Mapbox doesn't tend to be particularly good quality anyway, but in some instances it is okay. Okay. Finally, OpenAerialMap, always worth checking OpenAerialMap. And the metadata for OpenAerialMap, once you zoom in and you find a scene and you find some lovely, very crisp drone imagery like this, all the metadata is on the left-hand side here. So you have capture dates here. You have the ground resolution here, 5 centimeter pixels. So this is why it's so sharp. Okay. Nice. Yeah, good tip there, Gregory. So you can find metadata of at least some Mapbox scenes by cross-checking other sources. Yeah, it's good advice there. Couple minutes before the end there. I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover. Any questions anyone wants to verbalize out loud?
Yeah, Sam, is there any like, has anybody developed any software or algorithm for making comparisons like this, like where you put up two different images or even three different images of the same area and ask for, okay, it tells me these are different time periods and it has like 10 more buildings or, whatever.
Not that I'm aware of, no. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else knows about that, but not aware of ones that in particular ones that compare the sources that typically are available for OpenStreetMap improvement.
I've tried it in the past. It's very hard to do, I'll say, simply put.
I'm not surprised.
Especially when you're talking about different images from different times flown at different resolutions, from different angles even. There's a lot of changes, or there's a lot of like factors. But it would be very cool.
Yeah, the thing I actually do, I mean, but it's a manual way. It's not using anything like AI, but it's basically based on the same method of looking for transient features like clouds or like vehicles or something like this. And then this is the way again of getting Mapbox and other imagery sources. If you use the world imagery wayback, you can compare those tiles sometimes and you can see, oh, okay, this is the one with the cloud in it. Okay, fine. This is, this is what this is what that is. And you can get a good picture of all the default imagery sources.
I could just imagine, the utility of like a before after natural disaster kind of thing, instantly tell you sort of how many buildings have been damaged and rivers changing or things like that. It would be really cool, but I understand that it's really hard.
Yeah, Gregory, it's got a good shout out for world imagery wayback. I think this is the one you're referring to. I just shared it in the great, shared it in the chat for looking at effectively Esri's world imagery archive. It has this kind of central preview, which is nice.
But as you mentioned before, because a lot of these providers purchase their imagery from different sources, one of being Maxar, you'll also find things like Mapbox or Esri's older Clarity Beta also on this view.
Yeah. And one of the main reasons I wanted to share this is that I made a mistake by not checking the Esri capture date for Nigeria before while we were deciding which imagery to use. In the end, we use Esri imagery, but at the same time, we put through a request for an image from Maxar, and we didn't need to make that request of Maxar because the imagery that we requested was already available. It was already presented through Esri's world imagery. So you may often find that the most up-to-date imagery you're looking for is already available through one of the open sources that's available to improve OpenStreetMap. So yeah, always worth checking. We are over time now. But any final burning questions from anyone? Just highlighting Mark's great comment in the chat. Imagery Maxar often collects for disasters can have much higher off-nadir angles than the default 30 degrees. So good to set the off-nadir angle to a larger value than the default, which is I think 20 or 30 degrees. 30 degrees. Okay.
Yeah, it's worth noting that all our satellites are agile, so we don't just run a sensor across the Earth, like a desktop scanner would work across a document. The satellites can be pointed in any direction.
Okay.
So in the case of something that has like timeliness, like a disaster, even if we're not really going right over it, sometimes you can swing the satellite and get kind of a side view, which is better than nothing. When that kind of things happen. Instead of having to wait for the next orbit to be more over it, or if weather's coming in. So the satellites are actually, we do all the planning and shooting with actual, it's a team of people that basically fly the satellites, believe it or not. So, yeah, for anything new, just slide that off nadir angle all the way over. Otherwise, you probably won't see what you want.
Okay. That's great advice. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. And I with the sharing and express, that might be something that we could leverage to order the disaster data in the future. Is that if you can figure out what you want in pre-imagery and then create that permalink and send it to us, then we can probably just unpack that and throw it right into an order.
Okay.
Might be a good way to stream. We've been thinking about like, well, do we build a UI that people can log into, or do we just do email, or how do we streamline this in the future to make it just faster and easier on everybody? But that might be like the simplest tool is if you put that together, put together your permalink, send it to us, and then we'll run it
and share it. And are you happy for us to be sharing that with you in the kind of imagery core Slack channel, so that we're avoiding duplication on our end? We're not. Is that still the best way for us to kind of be sharing that kind of thing?
Yeah, that works. I think.
Okay.
Maybe we'll formalize it more with like an email address.
Okay.
Or an upload form or something in the future. But for right now, basically, since you're going to talk to me, hi Jeffy. And I don't necessarily hang out in Slack OSM all the time, but I would probably see it if you ping me in there.
Great.
And since we also have all the seamline data for our mosaics, the other thing I think maybe we'll do is we can just run a quick check to make sure that if you've asked for an ID that's already in a mosaic, just as part of the process with our automation, we can say like, oh, this image is already there. And then you don't have to like go to Bing and Esri and try to do all this date matching. You can straighten that out too, I think.
Okay, fantastic. Awesome. Noting we're six minutes over time, so probably should call it a close there. Huge thanks to everyone for attending this Activation Working Group special. Especially Mark, thanks for making time for coming today. And appreciate that everyone was happy for this to be recorded and to be shared as well. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Yeah, thanks Sam. Cheers.
Yes, thank you very much, Sam. Thank you, Mark, and thank you everyone for coming along, and great presentation.